Hi there, this is Dave Schwartz, the author of Roll the Bones, A History of Gambling, and today I'm continuing my walkthrough of the chapters in the Casino Edition, which was released in 2013, and which I hope you'll read. Last chapter we talked about Monte Carlo, and now in Chapter 4, Baiting John Bull, we talk about British history. Big, huge chunk of British gambling history, which you could devote many books to. I've tried to sum it up in one chapter, and I hope I've succeeded. I start out with Bath, which was the 17th century capital of British gambling, and this was really the place where Britons came to gamble then. Like the European spa resorts, it was a health spa that just happened to have gambling at first, but as the years went on and things got into the 18th century, the gambling really came to predominate. Beau Nash was the master of ceremonies who really put Bath on the map. He'd cleaned it up, made it much more reputable, made it a lot more fun, and basically made Bath the place where you wanted to gamble in Britain in that time period. Now in the 1740s, as Parliament cracked down on gambling, Bath's appeal began to fade, and it lost its luster as a gambling destination. But at the same time, as you can imagine, people didn't stop gambling, and a lot of the gamblers went into two places in London: illegal gambling houses that were generally crooked but apparently fun because people kept on coming, and gentlemen's clubs, which weren't strip clubs like you would see today, but clubs where gentlemen met, and I would assume that was somewhat loosely defined, and would do lots of things, including gamble. And there were a lot of clubs in the West End of London and St. James's Street. One of the most famous of the West End clubs, White's, was where the Earl of Sandwich invented the sandwich, allegedly because he didn't want to leave the gaming table while he was playing. So gambling created the sandwich. Pretty well-known historical fact there that I talk a little bit about in the book. In the 1830s, Crockford's was the best of these club casinos, because by this time they really were miniature casinos with a huge assortment of games that you could play against the house. It was run by William Crockford, who started out as a fishmonger and eventually became the most successful gambling entrepreneur of his time. So Crockford's and the other West End clubs were very successful, a little bit too successful because in 1845 Parliament again cracked down on gambling, and this time the West End clubs were forced to close and get out of the gambling business. I close the chapter by talking about Edmund Hoyle, and if you've ever heard the phrase "according to Hoyle," that's who this refers to. His story is really tied up with the story of whist, which was once a very popular genteel betting game in England, and all kinds of people played this game, very popular game, and it's the ancestor of today's bridge, which will give you an idea of it. So I talk a little bit about the history of whist, and also about Hoyle. Hoyle started out in gambling by writing a guide to whist in the 1730s, which he published in 1742, and since it was successful, he started adding other games, so he became known as the expert for all things gambling. Now the interesting thing is that even after he died, they continued to put out Hoyle's guides to gaming with adding new games, including games that hadn't been invented when he was alive, like poker. So Hoyle is cited as an authority on games that didn't even exist when he was around. That is most of the chapter. I've got a couple other really neat things in there, and I hope you'll check out the book. If you'd like more information, you can go to rollthebonesbook.com. Thank you very much.